Welcome to the official beginning of a new series, a bit of a more informal, less editing extensive review series I'm going to call The Horror Corner. Don't worry, I'm still working on Ruby and RVB and all that, but this will serve as a buffer, something I can put out in the meantime while I work on bigger projects, while also talking about films and shows that I love for a change. This can be anything from older films to newer ones, to slashers, to comedy, and to my favorite part, subtle psychological. You may have heard of these films, and you may not have, and that's okay. As a horror enthusiast, I'm an equal opportunity presenter. And for our first installment, what better way to start than with a film whose release history was as troublesome as the content it provides, the 2007 release of the Poughkeepsie Tapes. It is said that in our lifetime, there are anywhere between 25 and 50 active serial killers at work, and we come across possibly 30 plus serial killers in our everyday lives. They don't wear masks or have hideously deformed faces. They look just like us, and we have no idea. They could be the guy at Dunkin's we get our coffee from. They could be the cabbie taking you to the theater. They could even be the old man living right next door to you. When we're in public, we see only what they want us to see. What goes on behind closed doors and shaded windows is something we don't ever know, or ever want to know. Such is the case with the Poughkeepsie Tapes, a film depicting just that. If Criminal Minds was turned into a movie and ratcheted the depravity of its unsubs up to 11, then the Poughkeepsie Tapes is that final result. A violent, nasty piece of work about a serial killer's raised to infamy through the most horrific murders he performs. There is no joy to be taken in watching this movie. What you get instead is a terrible realization that this really could be anyone. The story is told in documentary form, with interviews from members of the FBI and police forces, as well as the families of some of the victims. These interviews are interwoven with cuts of hundreds upon hundreds of the killer's snuff films, showcasing the depths of his depravity and inhumanity. From the first murder onwards, the entire point of this movie is to make you, the viewer, as uncomfortable as possible. One can argue that it gets that point across maybe too well, goes too far in explaining just how messed up this person is. Hearing about him dosing a married couple, decapitating one and sewing their head into the stomach of the other is excessive for the sake of being excessive, like the movie is trying too hard to convince us that this man is sick. But the reason I don't subscribe to that belief is that the movie tries hard to show us as well. The very first known crime he commits is the kidnapping, rape, and brutal murder of a small girl done in broad daylight on her front yard. A lot of his kidnappings and a good deal of his torture are shown on camera. The movie does indeed subscribe to the show don't tell formula, with show and tell working hand in hand. Our killer has no agenda. He's not making a message or a statement. He kills because he must. He kills because the urge is too great for him. He kills because in it he finds purpose, meaning. Most of all, he kills because he can. Because somewhere along the way, rules and morals stopped meaning anything to him. And in a world that is becoming more and more desensitized to violence and more to apathy, as the internet makes it way too easy to dehumanize anyone and remove feelings from the equation, this is something that is increasingly becoming more and more familiar. This behavior, of course, existed before the internet, but it has made that behavior much easier to spread, and has made that behavior more bold, less afraid to be seen. If this were made today, there would be scores of people praising him for his intelligence and his ability to fool one of the most sophisticated police forces on the planet. And this man is intelligent. The adage of playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers is well demonstrated here. He never shows his face on camera. We see only glimpses with a mask on. He uses sign language at a video camera to tell police where two bodies are buried, knowing they would be looking. The perfect framing of a police officer to take the fall for crimes he did not commit, even going so far as to acquire sperm samples to seal the deal. These are the acts of a cold-blooded genius. Even the fall of his house and his tapes were on his own terms, not because of the actions of the police. It's horrifying to see just how well he plays the game, and how far he's willing to go to prove how smart he is. But even with that said, there are still moments to prove he isn't perfect. The first kill was hastily done. The entire execution of Cheryl Dempsey's abduction was sloppy, as if there were too many factors he didn't take into consideration beforehand. The two little girls in his house end up getting away, a possible liability to his fortress. As meticulous as he is, he's not perfect, and his few slip-ups almost get him caught. In a weird way, this almost gets the audience to connect to him, as it shows that despite his cunning, he is still only human. And that, at the end of the day, is the real horror behind the Poughkeepsie Tapes. Not the found footage nature of the film, or the way the killer's camera distorts and warps the footage as though Slender Man was standing right off camera. Nor in the brutal way he tortures and kills his victims. Not even for this scene, probably the most infamous shot of the whole movie, which he behaves like some kind of predatory monster. It's the fact that, underneath all of that, he is human. One of us. A member of society that, at some point in time or another, finally decided he had enough, and decided to strip himself of his restraints and delve into the madness. And in the end, there is no big standoff. The killer simply slinks off into the night, disappears, but does not stop. At no point does this film offer any sliver of hope that good will prevail. This film shows that evil men win more often than we would like. And even when we think we're close to a win, we're really just pawns in an ever-evolving game of cat and mouse. The Poughkeepsie Tapes is in that rare breed of horror film that is largely untouched by modern audiences, much in the same way that films like Sarah is Missing and The Night House are in. And I think the reason is obvious. Its content matter is disturbing, and not in the same way that The Hills Have Eyes or Hostel is disturbing with their endless gore fests. It's disturbing in its method. It's disturbing in not shying away from the harsh reality of torture and murder. But most of all, it's disturbing in its insinuation of how far man can and will go in order to hurt others. That the line between being human and being a monster may be thinner than we originally thought. The last thing I want to talk about is Cheryl Dempsey, the main fixation of our murderer. An ordinary girl abducted from her home that for years became a sex slave to this person, forced to cover her face and call her captor her master. She essentially becomes an unwilling accomplice in the many crimes committed in that house, even committing murder under his instruction. It is clear that this girl means something special to him, although the film never explains why. The movie shows that of the hundreds of tapes the killer recorded, the vast majority of them involve Cheryl in some way. Pain and torture become such a part of her existence she cannot function without it. When she is finally discovered, left behind by the man who had held her for so many years, she is a broken shell of a woman, beaten and mistreated. But the worst part is not the physical or sexual abuse, but the mental one. When we meet her for that final interview, she is almost unrecognizable. The light is gone from her eyes, as is the laughter and fun. In its place is a woman that has spent years in the company of her master, and he is all she knows. The captor, for her, has become God. Stockholm Syndrome has long set in by the time rescue got to her. She is now his, and his alone. Not even in death is she free for him, her grave desecrated and her body stolen. It is certainly curious that this one girl was the one he fixated on the most, and one wonders if the 27 missing tapes from the archive involved more of their story together. Whatever they shared, it was not enough to prevent him from moving onward to new victims in a new land. Because to a psychopath like him, he is incapable of love or infatuation. He knows only control. To him, Cheryl was not a person, but a toy, an object that he played with for years, until one day he left it behind. And then, once the toy was finally broken for good, he came back. Because abusers always come back. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little detour into the dark. Over time, we will reach into those depths more, seeing what lies down beneath its surface. Thank you for watching. Remember that I have a book out right now that ponders the why of stranger occurrences. And I will see you again next time.